Former UFC and bare knuckle fighter Pearl Gonzalez went off on the MMA media. My name is James Lynch. In today's video, we're going to go through some of the things that Pearl Gonzalez said in that Twitter thread, why I actually agree with some of the things she said, and some of the things I don't agree with. But before we dig into this, make sure you hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you don't miss future videos. Okay, so here it is. Kind of came as a bit of a surprise because I still don't have any idea what this is in reference to. So she says today's MMA media is trash can obviously. Most of you have never fought. You write for clicks or to stir shit up. You cover trash. I don't see any coverage on new athletes, the real life struggles of an athlete, overcoming failure, the do's and don'ts, and nothings about our regional scene. Another trash can, obviously emphasizing that the media as a whole is trash. If I decide to pursue this career, you best believe I'm coming for every single one of you whack-ass reporters. I spend 12 to 15 hours minimum studying these athletes for one fight card, for one pre-hour fight show. I do my best to gather as much professional and personal info about them, regardless of where they are on the card. So she brings up a lot of good points here. Let's talk about the things I agree with here. So first thing I agree with is that absolutely you should, just when it comes to interviews, when it comes to analysis of fighters, do that background research. I think a lot of people do a good job of this, to be fair. You look at someone like Laura Sanko, you look at, the Contender Series, that's basically what they focus on, is the backstories of these fighters when they're getting in there. So I think the regional scene is getting a decent amount of coverage. It can always get more, and we'll talk about that a little bit later here. But I also agree with the clicks. I mean, you look at certain sites, we don't need to call them out here, but the headline is something that had very little to do with the actual interview. So on that side of things, in terms of clickbait stuff, I'm with Pearl there because again, I don't enjoy reading it myself, like when it comes to just sensationalized headlines. So I'm with Pearl Gonzalez on that, but it's also a supply and demand thing. People wouldn't be writing clickbait stuff if people didn't read it, and regional stuff would get more exposure if people watched it. I'll just give you a quick example here. I interview a lot of regional fighters, and you look at the views on some of these videos here. These are all prospects. 287 views, that's actually pretty good, but 30 views, 82 views, 64 views. Like, these are all up and comers, and they just don't get the exposure because the audience isn't into it. It's a simple supply and demand thing. So you can't just cover regional stuff, because if you do that, nobody's going to click on your site, nobody's going to watch it. So it's a double-edged sword there. So there are fans out there that just will only watch the UFC, and I get that. And that's why the clicks are a little bit higher. Side note to this, one of the things I always tell people when they're getting into the media, if they're just starting out, interview prospects. You never know where they can end up. There's a handful of fighters that I've interviewed on the regional scene that went on to be big name fighters, like, Sean O'Malley, Mackenzie Dern. I mean, there's a handful of fighters that I could name, if you look on this channel here, that I've interviewed over the years. So when you're starting out, it's super important to interview those regional fighters, not only because they could go on to something big, but it's also good practice, and it's good for both people, right? You're getting the exposure for the regional fighter. You yourself are building up a portfolio if you're doing interviews. I think it's a win-win situation. So I agree with Pearl there. And in terms of the clickbait stuff, just one other point I wanted to bring up. Like, I feel bad for fighters when they do, like, say a 20-minute interview and they say one little comment, and that comment is focused on the entire interview. That makes them look bad. I'm with Pearl here. There definitely are some reporters out there that do that, and I can understand a fighter, these days being reluctant to do an interview or have something covered by them, by that outlet, because they're worried about how they're going to look. And, I think there are times when the media does twist things to look things a certain way. So again, I agree with her on those 2 points about more regional coverage and the fact that sometimes stuff gets taken out of context. I'm with her there. The stuff I don't agree with, let's get into that. The first point she brings up here, most of you have never fought. That doesn't matter. Like, this is something that really annoys me, actually, that I see people talk about on social media, that you have to fight to cover the sport. Look, if I had fought, or if other media members had fought before, would that make us better? Absolutely. Especially if you're an analyst, I think having fight experience is very crucial. But if you're doing interviews like I am, I don't think you need to fight. To put things on the flip side here, how many fighters have tried out on camera stuff and they're not very good? Does their fight experience lead to them being better on camera? Absolutely not. So it works both ways here. Again, I don't think there's anything wrong with having fight experience, but it's not a requirement here. I actually went to journalism school. I have a communications degree. That's how I learned how to be on camera. That's how I learned how to edit video. All that comes with the background that I have. But if I was just a fighter and jumped into this, there's no way I'd be as good as I am now. So it's just one of those things where you have to look at the balance here. So again, I don't buy into this whole narrative that you need to fight to cover the sport. As far as her spending 12 to 15 hours minimum studying these athletes, I mean, that's great. I've covered regional, I've done commentary for regional cards before. I'm not spending that much time, I'm spending a few hours, but hey, everyone's different when it comes to their preparation. I know broadcasters that need very little prep and they go into doing something and they're completely fine. Others need more prep. So again, her focusing on the hours here, I don't think that really matters that much depending on the fighter too. One other thing I'll mention here is I saw some of my fellow media members, quote tweet this and give their thoughts. This is just a dead argument. Like you're not going to win this battle. Pearl Gonzalez, very popular fighter, very popular on social media for a variety of reasons, if you know what I mean. No matter what you do or what you say on here, even if it's a great argument, there's going to be people that no matter what you say will not agree with you because they're fans of hers. You see this all the time. Like the person they're following can do no wrong. So that's why I think it's a waste of time. I mean, you can absolutely reply to her, but don't expect to win that argument because there's going to be people that just don't understand how the media industry works. And on that note, something that I get so annoyed with is when people say, oh, the MMA media is trash. They're all terrible. And this is a narrative that's been perpetuated by a number of people. They put journalists in quotation marks. Like I explained, I went to journalism school. I have a background in this. I, try my best to give you guys great content and do a good job. And when people say things like this, that, oh, it's a joke, it's easy to get into, it's just fans, that's just not right. I mean, they're like I said, there's not everyone are great at their jobs, but I'd say a lot of people that cover the sport are good people that put the time and put the effort in. And to just say that we're all a joke or the media is trash is absolutely ridiculous. And let's tell the truth here. And people don't like hearing this, but I've talked about this before on my live streams, and it's 100% accurate. There are people out there who want to do this job. Let's call it like it is, okay? There's people out there that don't have jobs that they like, that suck, that they come home, they can't wait to get online to unleash their own frustrations on the world. And it comes to people like me and everyone else because they're just upset they're not doing this for a living. So that's another, side of people that comes out on social media when they want to trash the media because they want to do this job. That's the absolute truth. And a lot of people don't like saying that. It's not an ego thing or anything along those lines. It's the fact that people want to do this for a living and they can't. So the way they compensate for it is they trash media members. It's no different than people trashing fighters wishing they could fight. There's no difference there. So that's something I wish people would tell the truth on here because you just see it in the replies here. Oh, the media is terrible. Well, then who's good? You never hear people talk about, oh, this person's good. It's all a blanket statement. The media sucks. They're terrible, whatever. And I'm not talking about Pearl specifically in regards to her first quote, even though that's exactly what she said. I'm talking just the people in general who just angry tweet all the time and they're watching all these interviews, they're watching all the content, but they still think the media quote unquote sucks. So got to get that off my chest. If Pearl had come out and said some of today's MMA media is trash, then we could all agree with everything that she said, but she's saying all of it as a blanket statement. That's not really fair. And like Eric points out here, Nolan King did a great story here on Brennan Ward, the former Bellator fighter. There's a lot of good work out there. I mean, it's not just Nolan. There's a ton of people who have put time and effort into not only the regional scene, but finding interesting stories about fighters. So it's just one of those things here. And then, of course, a couple fighters had to chime in as well. But the reality is there's a lot of fighters on here that are talking about this that need media exposure. So you're not really helping yourself out here. And as a quick side note here, I did reach out to Pearl Gonzalez for an interview because I've interviewed her a number of times. She's been great. I've had nothing but good experiences with her. And now that she's sort of part of the media here, I would want to get her perspective on both sides of the coin, being both a fighter and now a commentator. I don't know if you guys know, she does some work for, as we can see here, UFC Fight Pass, doing the watch along. She does some commentary as well. So it's been really cool to see Pearl Gonzalez make this sort of transition in her career as well. I believe she's still fighting too. But yeah, again, I think there's some things in here that she's right about, but I think there's some things as well, some of the blanket statements that I don't agree with. I'll let you guys know if that ends up happening, but I haven't heard anything back. I messaged her yesterday on Instagram because we follow each other. So there we go. So I want to know what you guys think in the comment section below. Do you agree with some of the points I made here? Do you disagree? Let's talk about this. I think there's a lot of misinformation out there when it comes to MMA coverage, and I want us to kind of have a healthy discussion about this. So let me know what you think. Follow me on Twitter and on Instagram at Lynch on Sports. Make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel. Hit the like button, hit the notification bell so you don't miss future videos. I'm James Lynch. I'll see you next time, and thanks so much for watching. That original flow, head kicks with the pros, picks of the fights or anything in the mix. Getting closer to the heart of the flame, bringing conversations with heavy hitting names. You feel the love of the game.